one thing we find is I want to kind of lay a biblical foundation and then kind of overlay where we are today. So if you look back in the Bible, it was a very male-oriented society, right? The Jewish culture, that's just how it was. But when you look at what did the women of the Bible do, what roles did they fill? They did some of everything. In the picture here, in the upper left, you see a woman as a grocer. So she's running that grocery store, the early grocery store. We have Lydia, the lady of purple. She was a seller of purple. She worked with royalty because purple was something that was... Women in the Bible were artists, they were chefs, they were teachers, they were traders, they were farmers, they were millers, they were midwives, they were nurses, they were leaders, they were businesswomen, they were judges, they were jewelers, they were perfumers, they were even a blacksmith. There was one blacksmith who was a female in the Bible. So they had some of everything. And I'm guessing they probably were paid the same thing as a man because back then they really didn't divide up. Well, you're a lady, so you don't make as much. So when we fast forward to today, women suffer a little bit because we don't have equal pay for equal work. Amen. And I know in 2009, President Obama helped pass the Women Like Better Act that you might have heard of before. And it was designed specifically to make sure that we got equal pay for equal work. But as you and I know too, just because there's a law doesn't mean it's so, right? It doesn't mean everything is going to work out that way. And sure enough, in 2010, the Texas Department of Rural Affairs under the Department of Agriculture was sued by 3 women. They found out that they were working side by side with other men and getting paid thousands of dollars less for the same exact job. That case is still unsettled. And so now, if you look at, then on the other hand, on 2012, the department was looking at trying to see the Census Bureau. One more slide. Census Bureau was looking at, well, how much is the disparity? What do men make and what do women make? And they found out that on average across the broad spectrum, men on every dollar, a woman makes 77 cents on every dollar. And so if you subdivide that a little bit more, then you find out that under African Americans, it's more like 69 cents to the dollar. And then if you look at Hispanics, it's more like 58 cents to a dollar. So that's a huge difference, right? And so they decided to look a little bit more and go like, well, what makes it shouldn't be that much? And one thing they found out was that women tend to work more often, as a larger population of women work in areas that make under $10 an hour. And so that, they said, accounts for some of it, but it doesn't cover the whole gap. So there is a gap, and it is something that needs to be covered. So as we work one by one to kind of cover this gap, what can we do in the interim besides going and asking for the rest of that raise, right, that lady left on the table? So we need to work on the what and the how to increase our earnings. Now, I'm going to unpack that a little bit for you because I know it's a little vague. But if you look at the scripture there, Colossians 3:23, it says, whatever you do, right, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. And so the what part talks about what do you do on your job. If you're a teacher, you teach. If you're a nurse, you nurse. If you're a secretary, you do secretary stuff. If you're a clerk, you do clerk stuff. Whatever you do it well. Because somewhere there's a job description of what you're supposed to know it. There's no excuse not to know it because, and this is the how part, how are we supposed to do our work? Work with all our heart as if we're working for who? The Lord, right? And so that's where that extra, viv and vitality comes in, where you go a little bit beyond what you need to do just because you want to make sure that you're doing it for the Lord, not for the boss man. And so sometimes you get talked about by your workmates, right? Why are you working so hard? They don't care. They're just going to do this, that, and the other. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing it for him. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for the Lord. Yeah. So we need to do the what and the how. That's our first tip. The second tip is to sharpen the saw. That's one way that you can kind of get the attention of the boss to maybe get that raise. Sharpen the saw borrows a concept from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. And sharpen the saw means to sharpen your mind, right? To add something to your mind. So you can do that for your job and you can do that for yourself. So for your job, maybe you need to go back and finish that degree. Maybe you need to get that extra certification. Maybe you need to do something to make yourself more multidimensional so the boss can see you not just in this little hole they have you plugged into, but maybe she could work here. Maybe she could do this, because I've seen her expand her role. So that's something we can do. And then also, you can sharpen the saw for yourself. There's some things that we just kind of put aside and think, oh, I'll never be able to do that. Well, pursue some of those things. You never really know, right? We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, right? So do it. Apply yourself and see if you can't do it. Let God shut the door. Don't you be the one to shut the door. The last point here is to mentor. Find someone who can mentor you. Mentor the knowledge of a mentor, or mint your knowledge into a mentee. So there's people at your job who are successful, who've gone another step higher. Talk to them. See, how did they do it? What's their life story? How does your story intersect with theirs? Are there things that maybe they can help open a door, or hold a door open for you long enough so you can get your foot in, right? And then conversely, there may be young people around you who have a good plan, and they're doing okay, but you know what they could do better if they just did this. See if they're interested in talking. See if they want to be helped up to that next step. So if we run through these things here, it may not close the earnings gap, right? Because some of that depends upon getting equal pay, but it helps kind of give us the right opportunity.